good times. We don't have a scotch or anything.
No.
That's probably the problem I just thought about.
Yeah.
But how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on the show.
Baltimore Ravens long snapper, all pro last season. Did the Achilles in the offseason, sadly. That's the injury of the league this year.
I think so. I mean, I kind of started the trend, I guess, and then
Yeah, you are.
Aaron and JK and Kirk Cousins and a lot of guys have just followed suit, I guess.
We don't want to harp on the Achilles too much, but like take me into the initial like, holy shit, I just tore my Achilles. Like I popped my calf last training camp and then repopped 2 training camps ago now. And then repopped it. And like I thought I tore my Achilles right away because the way it like shot up my leg. I'm like, oh my God, but it wasn't, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, yeah.
But what was that initial? Like, is that what everyone said?
Yeah. I initially was running some our conditioning test. It's kind of like a suicide test, and when I planted on a cut, I was basically changing 180 degrees, and I heard like this pop noise, and so I looked back because I thought my cleat had exploded, basically, like the sole of my cleat had just popped off. Mm-hmm. And I look back and I'm like, oh no, my cleat's fine. And I go to take another step with my right foot and my foot's like dangling in the air. And then when I go to hit the ground, I just completely collapse on my leg. And I had never felt pain like that in my calf ever. Because like mine basically snapped in half, shot all the way in the calf. Calf got really big really quickly. And I mean, it was like burning lava just below, like in the gastroc area, and it really hurt. And so I was in shock for 90 seconds or 2 minutes, and then called my trainer with the Ravens, and then called my wife, and was kind of like, hey, look, basically just ruined the whole season because I tore my Achilles. And I knew it kind of right away. I was like laying on the ground, kind of rolling around. My buddy was there. He was like, you all right? I'm like, I think I just popped my Achilles. And sure enough, next day I found out I did.
That's this league, though. Like, you know, you don't want to get too personal, but like, you just bought a new house in Baltimore.
Yeah.
That's
just
how
moved the whole family up here, man. We just
from Georgia, sold your house. You were talking about that earlier.
Sold the house in Atlanta. Moved up here full time in May during OTAs, and signed a nice contract in March. Like excited to be here, and you know, everything happens for a reason, I guess. And I guess the reason I wasn't meant to play this year. It's definitely a shit show, and you know, it's part of the business. I think we all know. We put our bodies through this high intensity kind of craziness that normal people don't do. So we kind of, you never expect it to happen, but in the back of your mind, you know that this is a possibility. And unfortunately for me, this is my first injury I've ever had in my life. Never had surgery before. First time I've ever missed playing time because of an injury. And you know, it just sucks because I had a really good year last season. I was really looking forward to building on that. Just like I said, I got my contract, and you know, we were kind of, me and Jordan and Justin were kind of coming into our own. And you know, unfortunately, I have to sit this year out and watch from afar. But you know, like I said, I think everything happens for a reason, and I get a lot of good time at home with my wife and our son. So that's been a blessing in the midst of all this chaos. So
yeah.
Small victories, I guess.
That's great. Yeah, we're going to get into all these funny stories, but I want to address and start off with just the pure fact that Nick and I were literally on the bottom of the roster in the XFL.
I don't think we could have. We were borderline not on the roster. We were like right there with the equipment managers, I think, in the XFL.
So Nick and I played Tampa Bay Vipers together in the XFL. Mark Trestman was our head coach.
Yeah, he was.
We had that little December.
It was like they called it like an OTAs mini camp.
Yeah, they paid us probably like what, $8,000 for it.
Yeah,
it was a built-in. It was like $20,000 of off-season work.
Yeah,
if you came to it was brutal. Like Trustman, who I actually liked. Like
yeah, I did. I thought, given the circumstances, I thought that they ran a really tight ship, and I thought it was good for everybody. You know.
Yeah. I thought it was too tight though during that little OTAs December.
Oh, at the beginning, he definitely was. He was.
There was like curfew. We were working 6 days a week. We didn't have an off day. Like it was way.
He was really trying to go like full training camp mode, and
in December, no pads.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of.
And we were still trying to feel out like the situation because it was all new for all of us, like coaches, personnel, players. Everything was new, and we're like, man, this kind of sucks. We got curfew at 10 o'clock and we're working, we worked a lot back then.
Even on the off day the next day.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I want to go to Hat Tricks or American Social or all the places.
Do something productive. We were in Tampa in December. It's like the best time of year to go there. And they just, you hit a Saturday night and they're doing bed checks at 10 p.m. and you're like,
Yeah, I
you
mean, I
wanna
guess it
make the
makes
team.
sense from the pure fact that we're in the XFL. They don't want to lose anybody
Yeah.
because the minute one guy goes down, one minute one guy messes up, it's the face of the league. That could have been a league mandated thing.
That's I mean,
That's
it
the
makes sense
XFL
when you
for
think
you.
about that. Like,
Yeah.
imagine if a couple guys had got a DUI or
Oh,
something
man.
even worse, and
Then the leagues,
then that's all they're talking about. It's like the League of Rejects is,
Yeah.
getting DUIs
Which we were.
and going.
No DUIs,
I mean, we
Ubers.
were, but
Yeah.
we were rejects for sure. But
I used to Uber with Gerald Foster and John Yarbrough. We had a group text guys,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And whoever would come. And it was usually those two characters who I loved. I would Uber from Lakeland, Florida, just about where we were, which was kind of a cool little town.
yeah, it was cool.
All the way to like Clearwater Beach, like an hour. And
That's dedication. I didn't do that.
We would split the Uber. I'm like, guys, it's the off day. What do we care?
Yeah.
What do we care? Let's do it.
I'm trying to think. The December time was kind of a blur for me, right?
I didn't
now
do
in
it
my
then. That was
brain.
weird. We stayed at a hotel in Tampa. We used to bus out to the
Yeah,
facility,
because
remember?
we stayed at what, UCF or USF or something the
USF
first
like
time.
hotel.
Yeah,
And then we stayed out then we stayed at
that was at that hotel. Yeah,
then we stayed at like a pit stop situation
yeah,
before too. So I don't know.
yeah. The motel.
The motel.
Yeah,
It had the little like
yeah.
Mexican food taco truck.
Literally in the truck stop, like
In the
right in
truck
the
stop.
basically in the parking lot of the.
I would get back
Oh,
from
the
like
place we were in.
late night at Hat Tricks or late night American Soldier or somewhere in Soho running around. And I would just walk over there and get a little late
Dude,
nights 24/7. It's kind of nice.
Good Mexican food, especially quick. I was rooming with Jake Shum and Andrew Franks was also hanging out with us, and Andrew had a bit of a liking to drinking alcohol, so we would always go to the gas station and have drink a couple beers in our room every day. But Jake was kind of a hard, like he was one of
Jake
those.
was dialed in.
Yeah, he was dialed in. He really wanted to get
He's
back
a guy
to the
who, like,
league.
again, going back to the bottom of the league, like,
Yeah.
he was bombing punts. He spent
was-
some
yeah.
time in the league,
Played 3 years. He was on IR for a year, but he played 2.
so he got his
He
pension.
was a good punter, man. I'm not really sure why he never got a chance.
Did he ever work out
after
after
that?
that at all, or no?
Yeah, he had one, and then he had one with the Bills because he lives in Buffalo.
Well, he was in that thing with the Buffalo. He was, like, covered in snow. And
Yeah, I'm not. It's interesting to me the guys that like remember. You may not remember because you weren't a specialist, but we had 2 kickers.
one made it.
Yeah,
Both of them made
the guy who didn't make our team, Matt Wright, is still playing in the NFL.
it. Yep.
Like he's played since then, 2020. He was
Didn't he
with-
hit a walk-off for Jax?
Yeah, Jags. He played with the Pitt Steelers because I played against him, and then he also played for another team. But I think he started this year on a roster, like 2023, and he didn't even make our team in the XFL. And then Andrew had played a couple years with Miami before the XFL, but he didn't get anything after.
I was the fourth, really third tight end, but I was the
Yeah.
fourth guy.
Yeah,
And at one point in training camp, I was the fourth guy. Then you got sick, which I believe was COVID.
100% was COVID.
Because it was January before it went
2020.
down, and the whole team had it. I remember laying in bed.
They
being like,
quarantined me in my own room,
this is the worst
and
thing.
they hit
in
me
the
with a
wo-
Z-Pack.
This was the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Sweating.
Dude, it was brutal. I couldn't even move. I had 104-degree fever. I'm like,
I
I lost
refused to
10
go in.
pounds in 3 days, which
Really?
I probably needed to lose it, but that's besides the point. But I was like, I had never been that sick that quickly, and then it just went away. After like 3 days, I was like totally fine.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
snapped in practice.
yeah, you snapped,
in
and it was that,
preseason game.
that half. Yeah, it was like that half game that you played in.
I was rolling them back there, baby.
And you did good then back then.
I did
And,
good. I was nervous.
I remember Frank was like, man, he called me when he found out I was sick. He's like, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, I don't even know if Colin can snap. I'm like, he'll be fine. And then he called me after the game. He's like, oh, you did good, and you did. I thought you snapped well.
I
in
like
that.
Frank, man. He was one of my favorite special teams guys I've ever had.
Dude, Frank Gans was for me. I had a blast with him. He was I loved him, and he was great to me. He had obviously the connection with Baltimore. He was the special teams coordinator that drafted Sam Cook, my first punter, and still coach. And it's crazy how that guy, man, he was so wild. Always talking about golf and like playing at these like amazing golf courses across the world, and loved turf. He sells his grass out of Florida.
Does he really?
Yeah.
You know what the thing about the XFL that was tough Was there's a lot of really great relationships that were being built that got severed. I haven't seen you
Yeah.
since then. I saw you the other day at the
I
gym.
know, yeah.
And then you're like, hey, let's
We've
get
talked
together.
a couple times. I saw you when we did joint practice with you guys.
Yep.
In 21, and no, that's the toughest part about all professional sports. Like and especially for that, it got ended so abruptly. Like we still had 5 games left. We basically had another month and a half left. Plus, if we had ended up, which we were 1-4, so we probably weren't going to make the playoffs, but we still had at least 5 or 6 weeks together. And that just like, hey, Thursday night, they're like, we're going to meet in the morning. And then boom, season's over. And it was like, all right, well, see you later. And we all just everyone just kind of went their separate way. And,
Yeah.
it happened so quickly. And I think the whole world the same way.
But that's
was
the
a
hardest
tough
part about
time.
what we do. You weren't able to go virtual. You weren't able to meet.
No.
You weren't able to go through those things.
No,
I remember like calling Frank, talking through different situations, and like texting him when I made it Carolina, like
Yeah.
thanks, man. And then that's it. It just goes away.
I talked to Frank when I made the team in 20, and then one more time in 2021. And that was it. I haven't talked to him since.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. And everyone kind of goes their own way in football and different sports. That's the shitty part about the game. I want to go back to like just your point of like the guys at the bottom of the roster. Like Aaron Murray was a starting quarterback. He did not do well for us at all.
No, he was the guy. He was the one guy on our team that was making like legit money.
A couple $100,000.
Yeah, he made like over 200,000, and he only played one game.
And then Quentin Flowers, who very well could have been our starter.
Yeah.
He was just like pissed the whole time that he wasn't the starter to start the year.
Yeah.
So then here comes Taylor Cornelius, our third quarterback.
He actually played great.
If Taylor was our third quarterback,
Yeah.
he would have been great the whole year. Jerry Glanville's defensive coordinator,
Yeah,
cover
dude.
zero every play.
every play, just cover zero.
And then we had a blast, man. It was a good time. A lot of great little bars and restaurants we hit up.
Oh yeah,
The city playing in Tampa was awesome.
I had the most fun, dude. I thought it was.
I have no regret. I loved it.
I
I'm
thought
for
it
the
was a
other leagues,
blast.
100%.
Oh, absolutely. I think. I mean, obviously, it worked out for both of us. We both
No
made it to the NFL, and several other guys in the leagues made it. And I just think it's great because like we made decent money. Like I was working a 9 to 5 before the XFL. I was working as a financial accountant, part time. My wife would say I was working from like 7 to 1.
Yeah, then you train.
And then I was training the rest of the day, and I was making $450 a week doing that. And then they called and they're like, hey, we're going to pay you at minimum, what was it, like $1,400 a week plus whatever we got
If you
for the
win,
games.
we have one win bonus.
Yeah, $2,200.
Then a couple Bud Light seltzers. Or
Plenty of Bud Light seltzers after that win bonus.
Yeah.
But I made like $35,000 in like 3 months, and like it's still not the NFL, but it's like it gets you to live out your dream a little bit longer, gives you another chance, and it keeps you out of the office, dude. I mean, like most of us are the similar mindset where like we want to be doing activities and like being being in sports and doing all that stuff. So I think it's great for guys like me who got a chance in the NFL right out of college and then immediately got cut. And then I was like, well, what am I supposed to do now? And that league came around, and best decision I ever made was going and playing.
No doubt. No doubt. I love it,
It's a no-brainer.
I had a blast. All right, so I think I buried the lead in a way. Your baseball career. Let's go back to like where it started, like your youth sports thing. You're playing all these different sports. Like take us through that journey of like youth into high school, football, baseball, getting drafted, like all this kind of this world for you of like how it all worked out with the two
I've
sports.
been a pro athlete for quite a while these days. So growing up, I was a football, baseball, wrestling, and then when I got to high school, I decided I didn't want to do wrestling, just because it was kind of like November to like February, and the high school I went to, we were pretty good, made it to the playoffs, so we play like into November and even December, and then baseball would start like right at the end of January, and so wrestling kind of overlapped with both of those. So I decided not to wrestle in high school and focus on football and baseball. And baseball was kind of the dream for me. That was always something I wanted to do, was play minor league professional baseball and try to make it to the big leagues and be like, I grew up watching Barry Bonds and Chipper Jones, and that was like the dream, make it to the big leagues, play baseball until I'm 40, live the good life for the rest of my life.
Sounds fun.
And played football at high school kind of as, I loved it because like the high school I went to in Georgia, Brookwood in Gwinnett County, and it's like my dad was a coach there from the day the school opened. He's still a coach there, 42 years later, 43 years later, still coaches there. And it was like small town USA football. Like when it was Friday, I grew up going to the game. So Friday, all the stores and restaurants would close down. Everyone would go to the game. It was like this huge ordeal every week, just like they talk about in Texas. I mean, it's the same kind of deal. So I wanted to be a part of that because I grew up in that life as my dad was a football coach. And when I got to high school, I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to play the high school football and be with my boys that I've been playing sports with since we were, some of them 5. Mm-hmm. And so I played football and actually was pretty decent in high school. All my sport accolades in high school were football related.
What position did you play?
I played safety, believe it or not.
Did you snap too?
Yeah. So my older brother was a long snapper and tight end, and long snapper and defensive end. And then I did it. My dad being a coach and like having the savvy to be like, hey, I had a good arm as a baseball player. He's like, we're gonna have you snap to learn how to snap. Jake is my older brother. Jake was a long snapper, but we want you to do it as well, just to have it in your bag. And then that was my freshman year. Jake was the snapper my freshman and sophomore year. Then he graduated. And then I was not, one of my buddies was, he was like long snapping. That was like all he was doing. So he became the long snapper. I'll never forget, we had a rain game against one of our bigger rivals, and he snapped it over the punter's head. We ended up losing like 10, I think we ended up losing 17-10. And then I started snapping the next week. And then my senior year, so that was my junior year, I snapped like half the year. And then my senior year, I snapped all the way until the second round of the playoffs when our punter got hurt. I was a backup punter. And so when he got hurt, I went to punter, and one of my other buddies went to long snapper. But I did, my dad just forced me to do it basically. And I got, I was okay at it in high school. I probably thought I was a shit, but I wasn't. And then, so that was like kind of my football deal. We ended up winning the state championship in football, and like, I had really positive memories and good memories about how football ended for me, so that when, once we get through my baseball story, that's kind of why I wanted to go back. And so played my senior year in baseball, get drafted by the Red Sox in the 30th round in 2011. Got about $200,000 signing bonus, so I was like, shit, I'm not going to college, bro. I was going to Kennesaw State, which is a baseball school outside of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Great baseball school. Some of the guys I went to school with, they ended up going to Super Regional in 2014, which would have been my junior year. A couple of my buddies got drafted in the first round out of Kennesaw. Great baseball school. School wasn't something I wanted to do. My dream was to play baseball. So I got the opportunity, got a decent amount of money at 18. I was like, screw it, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I didn't make it to the big leagues, but I think it's one of the best decisions I ever made. I definitely wouldn't be where I am right now if I hadn't made that choice. And so I just, signed with the Red Sox, ended up playing, about 4.5 years in the minors, dabbled anywhere from a rookie ball to a cup of coffee in Double-A. Started out pretty good, had a really rough year, my second full year, 2013, and had a really bad year. And then that was kind of the end of it. I played one more full season after that in 2014, and then 2015 I played half a year and got cut.
Why is there like a wall there? Because so many guys have the same story. It's either like, man, I got made it all the way through to minor AAA, and I had a cup of coffee in the majors, or I took off.
Yeah.
Or it's like, man, I just hit this wall, and like guys are just excelling past me.
So the tough part about the minor leagues, especially coming out of high school, is like, you come out at 18, you're like the new shiny object or toy or whatever, and so they give you all the chances. And I was a late round draft pick, and they didn't give me a lot of money. I mean, the grand scheme of baseball, $200K is nothing. They're giving out, we had 4 first rounders that year, and they were, all 4 of them were 1.2 or more.
Who were they?
We had our first pick was Matt Barnes, and then a pitcher out of UConn who's in the big leagues with the Red Sox still. Second pick was Blake Swihart, catcher out of New Mexico high school. really good player, made it to the big leagues. Didn't play it very long, but he made a couple years in the bigs. Henry Owens was a left-handed pitcher out of Huntington Beach, California. He was a stud. Not sure what happened to him. I think he got the Y word. I won't say it out loud, but he got the YIPS. And never, played a little bit in the big leagues, but never really got his footing. And then Jackie Bradley Jr. out of South Carolina is a stud. I mean, he's still playing in the big leagues. I think he's with, last I checked, he was with the Brewers. I'm not sure who he's with anymore, but they had those 4 guys, and they got they probably got $8 million between the 4 of them. And so for me to get $200,000, they're like, whatever, we'll just give him his chances. And I actually did really well my first year and a half. I was probably hitting like 260, I wasn't like hitting home runs or anything that, I should have been doing, but I played pretty good. And then 2013, I really struggled making contact. I swung and missed a lot, had a lot of strikeouts, and that was kind of the end of it.
I was a freshman in Florida at that point in time. Excuse me, 2013?
Yeah.
I was a sophomore in Gainesville.
Dang.
You ever do Florida, Georgia? You ever go as a patron,
No,
or you do as a player?
never went as a patron. Haven't been yet. I'll go one day.
It's a good time. I've been as a patron 3 different times. 2 as a player, and I didn't play. I didn't travel.
Yeah.
And then I went this past year. We got to go.
I need to go,
it's a tough career. When your career's over, we'll go.
Yeah. That game's so much fun. But I couldn't figure out how to hit. Like I never really matured in the hitting aspect until it was too late. And so being a high school kid, in your 3rd year, that's where you really have to like start making that jump. They put me on the low A, so it was like my first full season, broke camp is what they call it, and so they gave me like my chance, and I squandered it. I was hitting like 170 after 6 weeks, and they sent me back down, and by that time, like I'm out, so they're like trying to find somebody else. Well, then every year they're bringing in the draft. And they're getting the kids out of college. So now I'm the same age as some of the kids that are coming out of college, except for they're brand new and I'm not. And I had already been there. And so that's kind of what happened. In 2014, I finally started getting my footing, playing well. I was hitting the ball pretty well that year. And then we drafted Sam Travis out of Indiana, 2nd round first baseman. And that was kind of the writing on the wall for me that, you gave it your best shot, kid, but that's pretty much it. And thank you for your service. And I had a good rapport with a lot of the minor league staff. I worked hard. I had a good attitude, even though I wasn't playing a whole lot in 2014. And I played well. So they kept me around, tried to give me another chance in spring training in 2015. And it was just a little too late. I kind of knew it was the end. And honestly, I was like relieved because baseball had eaten me up and spit me out. I mean, it was not a good mentally for me. I couldn't handle it. And so I think, when I got cut, I was like, thank God. Because like my dad had always told me like not to be a quitter. And I had issues when I was a kid. Like I was super competitive and I would quit when I would lose, but as I got older, my dad always was like instilling in me, like, you can't quit. You have to fight this to the end. And so when they cut me, it was like, I didn't quit. I gave everything I had, which I believe it till the day I die that I gave baseball everything I had and I had nothing else to give. When I got cut, I had an opportunity to play with the Orioles and I was like, no, I'm done. And
you can go play now. You can walk across the street.
Yeah, well, now it would be sick.
Yeah.
I look at it now, I'm like, man, being in the big leagues would be sick. Because like a lot of my friends, like Cedric Mullins and I went to high school together. It's like one of my good friends from high school. We played together for 3 years in high school, and a lot of my friends that I got drafted with, or I played in the minors with, or I grew up playing ball with, they're all in the big leagues. And I'm like, this is sick. Like the big leagues is amazing. They make a shit ton of money.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's all guaranteed. They travel like crazy, and they get to play baseball. And, but talent-wise, I was nowhere near it. I mean, I lived with Mookie Betts, who's arguably one of the best baseball players on the planet, and I wasn't even in the same galaxy as that dude.
He was that different, huh?
Dude, we would be at the house like playing wiffle ball in the front yard, and it was like watching Derek Jeter hit versus watching a 9-year-old baseball player.
And you're a professional.
And I was like we were all pros, and we're out there playing wiffle ball with the little golf balls, working on like just kind of kind of just screwing around, passing the time during spring training, but also like actually working on like hand-eye coordination, getting barrel on the ball, and look like having that small ball, so it makes it a little bit tougher. And that dude was just so much better. Like I'd be like, I don't know how you're doing this because we're all swinging and missing.
Was he a draft pick or college guy?
He was draft pick out of high school. Yeah, he was 5th rounder, 2011. We got drafted together.
5th round.
5th rounder out of Tennessee. He was a basketball and baseball
How much
player.
money has he made in his career?
Well,
500?
I mean, his contract that he just signed was, what was it, 9 years, $369 million, with an option for a 10th year to go to 397. But that gets paid out until he's like 47.
Yeah.
He's going to be making $10 to $12 million a year for the
Bobby
next
Bonilla,
25
whatever
years.
stay.
Yeah. Bobby Bonilla day for
Hey,
the
that
Mets. Yeah.
guy's a stud.
And so I was around a lot of guys that made it to the big leagues, and I was just like, I'm never gonna make it. These guys are so much better than me. Like on their worst day, they're better than me on my best day. Like I had one game in my entire career where I didn't get out in the game. I went 3 for 3 with 3 doubles one time. Mookie's first 2 games in AA, he went 8 for 8 with 4 homers and 4 doubles. I'm like, the most home runs I hit in one season was 4. He did it in 2 games, in his first 2 games in AA.
Different cat.
You know, like it's like that in our profession too. I watch Lamar and I'm like,
Yeah.
that guy's just built in a different, like he's built somewhere else. Like I was born over here. This guy was manufactured.
C-Mac,
talent
Justin
is just
Jefferson.
insane.
We're going to get into the NFL
Yeah.
stuff. I want to get to Georgia, though, before we get to there. So, baseball ends. You're saying I'm going to become a long snapper. How do you get to Georgia from baseball?
So I did not initially say I wanted to be a long snapper. I wanted to go to college. I was ready to go back. I was ready to go to school. At that point, I was older, more mature. I was ready to do something with my life. The plan was go to college, use football as a gateway to networking and
Yep.
getting to know people, and use that to help propel me in my life after sport, after
Brilliant.
I graduated.
And that's what more kids should do.
Yeah, 100%.
I firmly believe like a lot of kids I coach and recruit, like help with recruiting. They're like, well, I'm going to get my scholarship to D2 or get some like books money to go play D3. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, if you can afford it, go walk on Division 1.
Yeah,
That's why the grades are so important for kids
Yeah.
too.
I think kids coming out of high school, I don't think I ever would have rationalized that in my head. Like, go there to use it to propel you for the
Yeah.
next stage. You know what I
Because
mean?
your network is so big.
100%.
Like Georgia on the other side of this camera, like we never would have met if it wasn't for college sports.
Yeah, I mean,
Period. Both of us.
Yeah, I have so many connections. Like my agent is one of my former teammates at Georgia.
Yeah.
My sports agent now, and so that was my plan to like use that because I had known guys that I went to high school with and that were a little bit older than me that went to my high school that played ball at, like they were on the team at Georgia or Tennessee or what have you, and they're like getting jobs with people just because they played ball.
Yep.
And I had a friend of mine who I grew up playing football with, a guy by the name of Cameron Faulkner, that we started playing ball together at 7, and we graduated high school together. He did the I guess it was NAIA back then.
Yeah.
He went to Bethel College in Tennessee.
Yep.
Ended up tearing his ACL, and decided, you know what, I'm just going to go to Georgia and walk on. I just want to go to Georgia, and I want to be on the football team. And
Now it takes a certain amount of athletic ability to do that, yes, but
100%.
less than people realize.
But
I
back
think-
then, they weren't doing the walk. Like Mark Rick wasn't doing the walk-on tryouts that Kirby's doing now.
Oh, Kirby has what? Bigger walk-on tryouts?
Yeah, now it's like real tryouts. Yeah.
Tryouts. It's
Yeah,
that big of a deal, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they too many guys. Like back when Rick was there, basically I saw it once we went to the national championship in 2017,
walk on.
2018. The number of people that want to be on the team skyrockets. And so you have to draw a line because you only have so many guys in the locker room. Like we had 130.
You guys had good walk-ons.
Yeah.
I mean, you see Texas A&M the other day. They had the walk-ons.
Yeah, the
run
whole walk-on kickoff
They
team.
cover.
Yeah.
Look around though. Those guys were dudes now running down.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
there
all
wasn't,
still good. Yeah, they're still good players,
Yeah.
And
So how's it go? Talk me through the progression.
yeah, so I walk on at Georgia.
So you say I'm going to University of Georgia.
Yeah.
I want to play football.
I wanted to go home. I just started dating my wife at the time, and I was like, I want to be home because my dad was he was my coach my whole life, all the way from I started baseball at 3, and so he didn't get to watch a lot of my minor league games because they were so far away. We're like, we're playing in East Bumble in Ohio, like, my dad's not coming.
Yeah, it's like there for 2 nights and then you're on a bus.
Yeah, and so he saw me probably play 20, 25 games I think in the 4 years I was playing.
Which is a lot in baseball.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
But so I decided I wanted to be home so that my dad could at least, at that time I was like, I'm going to play. Like I went to school as a linebacker. I was like, I'm going to play linebacker, okay?
In the SEC.
I was like watching kids I went to high school with that are on the team. I'm like, I'm better than this guy, or I'm as good as him, right?
Yeah.
Well, I quickly learned it's not always about how good you are, especially in college. But also went to Georgia with Roquan Smith, and we were both freshmen together. This guy's a borderline wide receiver for Alabama, who comes into Georgia as a linebacker, running a sub 4.4, and we're doing like these 10-yard burst starts my first day, and I'm like, this kid was past the 10-yard line before I even got off the blocks. I'm like getting out of my stance, and he's just gone. And so I quickly realized after I did fall camp at linebacker, and I'm very football intelligent because my dad's a coach. I grew up watching film my whole life. Mm-hmm. So I understand football really well, and I can fit and do all that stuff, but I'm not fast. I'm slow, let's be honest. And I'm not super physical, like comparative to Roquan.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more like.
To an all-pro linebacker.
Yeah, like to one of the best of our generation at linebacker. So, after my fall camp, Jeremy Pruitt was our defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And I had a good relationship with him, and he brings me to the side first day of school, like first practice outside of football camp, and he goes, "Hey, you think about playing fullback?" And I go, "It's probably a good idea." He's like, "Yeah, because you ain't never playing defense." And so I moved to fullback that day, and it wasn't a knock on me, like he was doing me a favor trying to get me on the field.
Yeah, because you would have been off the roster.
Yeah,
Eventually you would have been off.
Yeah, he's like, this kid can play, but he just can't play here. Let's try to figure out where we can put him. And he did me a favor. That first year sucked because I played like 11 snaps my first year between special teams and fullback as a freshman. And that was back before you could play 4 games and get redshirted. So they only let, I didn't get my redshirt that year. But then I played a little bit more my next year, and it got my footing in the SEC. Playing football after not playing for 5 years is like.
And you weren't snapping at this point.
No, I wasn't snapping.
What's that period of time from when you snapped the ball in high school until you snapped the ball?
The last time I snapped the ball in high school would have been October of 2010, and the first time I snapped in college in a game was September of 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. So almost 7 years exactly.
All right. So how did you say I need a snap?
So when Kirby came in, we needed guys. We had graduated a couple older snappers. We had one guy on the roster that was a snapper, and he was like, "All right, I need guys that can snap." And so I was like, "Yo, I can do it." I did it in high school, whatever. And so he started letting me snap during fall camp, like during punt rush drill or whatever. If we're you got the 5s out there on punt, he's like letting me go. Well, then the long snapper gets hurt the first game of the year, my sophomore year. And Kirby comes over and he's like, all right, you're going to play next week. You're our guy. You're going to long snap. I'm like, sick. We had just implemented the pro-style punt that year. Shane Beamer came in, brought the pro-style punt from Virginia Tech. And so I'm like, I go out there Monday, have a good practice. Tuesday, go out there, have a good first couple of reps. Like third or fourth rep, just sail one 100 yards over the punter's head. And Kirby comes over and he's mother mother effing me the whole time, and he's like, "You're never gonna play long snapper here. That's just terrible." Throws me out of the drill. I did not play long snapper that whole season. Still worked. That's when I first started working at long snapper. Less of a focus on fullback, more of a focus on long snapper. Still played special teams that year, kickoff return, punt return. And then, so then moving into 2017, the kid who ended up playing over me in 2016 graduated. And we switched away from the pro style punt, went to the spread punt, which for people that don't know, as a long snapper, that makes a huge difference. Because like on a pro style punt, you have to block, so you got to snap, move. You know, you're involved just like an offensive center would be, except for you're snapping with two hands and the guy's 15 yards behind you. When you go to the spread punt, there's no blocking. You just snap the ball and you can just watch it go all the way back to the punter. So it's so much easier from a snapping perspective. So we moved to the spread punt, and long snapper ahead of me, same guy that got hurt the year before, comes back 5th year and gets hurt the week before our first game. He pulls his hamstring in our scrimmage. And I was the number 2. And at that point, I had been snapping pretty good. But I was still doing special teams and like helping out at fullback and stuff like that. And so Kirby brings me in after Trent Fricks was the other long snapper's name. He's like, "Trent's out. He's going to miss the first couple of weeks, so I want you to long snap." And I'm like, he's like, "But now don't fuck it up for me." And I'm like, "All right." And I ended up playing the first 3 games at long snapper. Did well. Played on the road at Notre Dame. Big game. I think we ended up winning 20-19.
Yep.
And so got a little bit of a taste. And then in college, I was an eligible number because I played fullback. So I was number 43, whereas Trent was number 69, so non-eligible. In college, you can't report as eligible like you can in the NFL. So we had a fake the whole year. It was called Tiger. It was a long snapper pass. And so I would be the end man on the line of scrimmage. And our punter, we had a punter who had punted at Georgia. Bryce Ramsey was a quarterback. And so we put this in like when I was the actual long snapper, and we ran it all year in practice. Every week we'd do it. So I had to like stay up on my long snapping, even though I wasn't playing in any of the games. And then I ended up playing. We called the fake against Alabama in the national championship game. Did not work. And then my buddy ended up having a 19-yard punt. So I played that one play in the Natty. And then 2018, I became the full-time long snapper. And I was the guy. And I snapped all 14 games, played the Sugar Bowl, and then did the Reese Senior Bowl and signed with the Saints after the draft in 2019.
And then you went Saints, XFL.
Yeah, did the Saints, got cut halfway through training camp, got an office job for about 3 months, and then XFL 2020.
Bam.
And then COVID happened, then signed with the Ravens in 2020, and that's pretty much it. That's where we're at.
All right, go back to the Sugar Bowl. It was a great story. You started telling off air, and I'm like, stop telling the story because I need to be
Sugar
juicy
Bowl,
on here.
man.
Sugar Bowl party story, and Nick and I are retired. I don't want to ever be retired.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get some good stories when we retire. This is
a Georgia story. I'm okay telling it. I don't have a problem talking about this.
Give them the Sugar Bowl story.
I think it's
Sugar Bowl's a good time now. I was there in 2012, 2013, 2012 season Sugar Bowl. We lost to Teddy Bridgewater when he got laid out by John Bostic, that big hit.
Yeah.
That's when Notre Dame got smoked by Alabama in the national title. Florida was 3rd in the country. I was on the sideline, literally looking at the field, being like, "This is a different sport.
I don't
know if I can do this."
Yeah, I remember my first couple of times.
So
we play
Go to
Texas.
Sugar Bowl.
We played Texas in the Sugar Bowl. And for those of you that don't know, Athens is a notorious party school.
It is.
We have a lot of bars. We drink a lot. We like drinking. We like having a good time. I mean, it's just
So
what
was
you do in the
Gainesville.
South.
Florida, same thing.
Yeah. And so my last college game was the Sugar Bowl against Texas. And I have my whole family in town just because it was my last game. And so I got my parents there, my best friend and his parents are there, my brothers are there, their girlfriends are there, my girlfriend was there, one of her friends was there. So it was like I had a lot of people in because New Orleans isn't that far from Atlanta. It's like a 7-hour drive. And so we played this game, and first of all, we absolutely rage-faced the whole week while we're there, right, at the Sugar Bowl. So we go in and we play Texas. We're super sluggish. It's like we're playing in quicksand because we're just like we looked terrible on the field. We end up losing 28-21. And so
That's
after
what Texas is back. The whole
yeah, this is
nine.
the Sam Ellinger. Texas is back, and they're not. They haven't been
great.
back since. And
They were never back. Just Georgia was just hungover.
yeah, we just like for us, we thought we were going to make it to the playoff that year. We lost to Alabama in the SEC championship, 35-28. Should have won that game. Just
Who's your quarterback?
Jake Fromm.
Okay.
And so that was the Jake Fromm, Justin Fields whole debacle. And so we thought we should have made it to the Natty or made it to the playoffs. We ended up getting ranked 5th, not making it to the playoffs. And for us, after going to the playoffs and national championship the year before, at that point it's like nobody cares. Like we're not in the playoffs, we're not playing for anything.
Yeah, it diluted the bowl games.
Like there's no
Sugar Bowl, great.
there is a sense of pride.
There is not.
But like after coming off a national championship and like experiencing that, and then even though it's still a New Year's Six bowl, we were just like, oh, this sucks. Like nobody wants to be here.
Yeah.
Opposite for Texas. They're
doubt.
like, we're in the Sugar Bowl, blah, big deal. And which we probably should have played a little bit harder, but anyways, we didn't. We lose. And I'm like, well, this is my last game. I'm graduated. I'm done with Georgia football. I just gotten accepted into the Reese Senior Bowl like a couple weeks before, so I was like riding high, and it was right after New Year's. So I had all my friends down there. So we went out after the game, and I mean we went out like
Of course.
Bourbon Street never closes.
Doing piano bar.
Yeah,
You got the
like-
big beers on the street.
Our security guy's like, all right, boys, the bus is leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's it. Just be on the bus at 8 o'clock. I'm like, okay. So we go out and proceed to indulge ourselves a little too much, get absolutely hammered, and make it back to the room. Go back. We're walking in the room at like 7:15. Yeah, oh yeah. Because the game was at 7:45, so we didn't even get on Bourbon Street till like 1.
Yeah.
And so Bourbon Street takes like a 30-minute break at like 6 a.m. and then they sweep the floor and then they let you back in. So when they kicked us out for sweeping the floor or cleaning up the place, it was like 6 in the morning. We ended up walking back to the hotel, and we were hammered, so it took us a long time. We get back there, get dressed. I'm like still really intoxicated at this point, and everything's packed up. My buddies are helping me get on the bus, go to the airport. My buddies are carrying me through. Like I had a freshman punter or a long snapper that was I was kind of rookie hazing him, I guess, with having him like take care of me. And so we get to the plane, 8:45. We're on the plane at 9. I'm a senior. We're riding one of those big jets, so seniors had first class or whatever. I had one of those lay down pods. So I immediately put my stuff in, go to sleep. I slept for 4 hours. Mind you, it's like an hour and a half flight from there to Atlanta. I sleep 4 hours. I wake up at 12:30, 1 o'clock. I think we're home. I'm like, all right, we're back in Atlanta. So I start taking my stuff out. Everybody's like hanging around the plane, So I start getting my bags, and nobody's saying anything to me. I pull my bags out. I start walking to the door. I get over to the door, and the flight attendant's like, what are you doing? I was like, what? I'm leaving. What do you mean, what are we doing? She's like, we're still in New Orleans. And I'm like, what? She's like, oh yeah, one of our pilots didn't show.
He was on Bourbon Street.
Come to find out, he had gotten sick on Bourbon Street.
Yeah, he got sick.
Was
right.
unable to
was
show up.
hungover.
So they had to fly a pilot from Atlanta to get on our plane to fly us back to.
No way.
Because we had the big jet, so you have to have 2 pilots.
Yep.
Like 2, I guess, certified pilots or whatever. And so we had to wait on him. And I slept through all that. And I was just like,
So what'd you do? Did you get up and start boozing, or what?
no, good God.
Went back
no.
to bed?
I went back. We didn't end up leaving till like 3 in the afternoon. My
Brutal.
family drove home that morning, and they beat us back at a 7-hour drive, and we only had like an hour, 20-minute flight or whatever it was.
Brutal.
But yeah, it was one of the more stupid things I've done, I think, in just the sense that my teammates were kind of jackasses for not telling me that we're not going anywhere yet.
Of course.
But that was kind of that kind of summed up my time in Athens.
Yeah, so my Bourbon Street story, I'll tell it briefly here, and we'll keep it moving and wrap things up with the Ravens. It's New Year's, whatever, and they flew the out-of-state guys in the day before.
Okay.
So you'd fly in, right? Because we went home for Christmas for like 4
Yeah.
or 5 days. And, Muschamp and the staff, they fly you down. So it was like me and all the out-of-state guys. And there's a lot of us. A really cool group. A bunch of guys from Philly, a bunch of guys from here, Jersey, Indiana, all over.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of them are the misfit toy guys.
Oh.
Of course. So
Yeah.
we're like, yeah, screw it. Let's go out. So we go out, absolutely tear it up. I'm young, and I'm sneaking in, whatever, having a good time. And had a blast. And I got sick as a dog, like a cold the next day. And all my per diem money. I came back to Gainesville with like $4,000 in per diem money. That must be like $4 million in Gainesville.
Yeah,
so I ended up having a good time in Gainesville with that $4 million. But every time I hear about the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, I think about that. So
the Sugar Bowl is a great time.
that's a great time, yeah. New Orleans it's a 72-hour city. It's a 72-hour city, and then we're out of there. So, all right, Ravens. Transition to the Ravens, and then we'll wrap things up.
Okay.
Again, we're talking to Nick Moore, long snapper, Baltimore Ravens. All right, lots to unpack with the Ravens. I don't even know where to go with it because first class, first off, it's a first-class organization that has done a ton of winning. You're an all-pro there. You play with Lamar. You play with Justin Tucker. You play with Roquan Smith. You play for a great owner, GM, and head coach. Like those organizations, people think they just float on trees what's the word? Of course, what do they say? Grow on trees.
Grow on trees.
Excuse
like
me.
money.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Like money.
My dad would say that.
Yes, but they don't. They don't in the
No, they
NFL. There's very few of them that like everyone's in line, and there's this beautiful facility and like, this great fan base. Let's start there. Like playing in Baltimore.
It's unreal. I mean, I think it starts from the top down. I think Mr. Bisciotti has done. He's very invested in the Ravens. He puts a lot of time and money into the organization. If there's anything that the organization needs and is justifiable to buy, I mean, he buys it. Like he's not afraid to spend money. He wants to win, and so he does. I mean, he puts the money into the organization. So I think that that's where kind of everything starts. And then you got Eric DeCosta, who basically grew up in the organization, has been with the team since '96, started at the bottom, has worked his way through the ranks, and now he's the GM. And he has an appreciation for the Ravens. I think that a lot of guys, because he had been there since the beginning and he knows, like he's seen them, they've won two, he's there when they were really bad, and he's been there when they've won two Super Bowls. So I think he has a really deep love for the organization and Mr. Bisciotti and just the city of Baltimore. And so that makes it that's great for all of us. And on top of that, and next to that is we have John Harbaugh, who's arguably one of the best coaches in the NFL. And, they've kind of been the glue. They've been together. John's been there 16 years now. And Eric's been, there for the life of the Ravens. And Mr. Bisciotti's been in there since the 2000s. And I think having those three guys as like key figureheads really set the tone for the organization because they're like, this is what we do. And this is what's expected of you. If, they call it the Ravens way. Or play like a Raven, and that is the expectation, and they all uphold to that, and everybody that's on the team or in the organization, they have to live up to that, and that's a daily battle. And I think having those three guys at the top just is something you don't find all that often in the NFL. I mean, there's so much turnover in coaches, there's so much turnover in executives and GMs. The ownership stuff, there's not as much turnover, though the Commanders had a change.
You're seeing more of it though. Like in this league, there was never before. Denver Commanders.
Yeah.
Our Panthers team I played for the last 3 years.
There has been actually a decent amount.
But more,
recently.
but not a ton. No.
No.
You don't give them up. 1 of 32. You don't give those teams.
No, it's tough, and so I think having those guys haven't been together for so long. And they're the best at what they do, all three of them respectively, and I think that just makes the organization so much better. And then on top of that, we have everything we have is top of the line, first class. Mr. Bisciotti gets anything and everything that we need. Everything is perfectly manicured. All of the landscaping, the building is beautiful.
The castle, right?
The castle, yeah.
The castle.
The beautiful castle, and everything is just done right.
Yeah.
it's just done the right way, and I think that's why the Ravens have seen
Get the jersey,
so much
they hook you up with the
success.
jerseys too, right? That's
Yeah.
not normal either. People think,
We're like the only team that practices in game jerseys.
so you get how many
And
jerseys a year?
Every year at the end, and we get 6 jerseys.
And people think that maybe is normal. That is not normal.
No.
Like you pay for your jersey, you got to do that. Like
Yeah.
like
if you want to do like a jersey
couple $100
swap,
bucks.
yeah, it's $350 for a jersey swap.
Yeah.
That's if you ask in advance, because if you don't ask in advance, it's $3,000.
Really?
Yeah, they'll get you.
Yeah.
Because they give you, like we have seamstresses that work for the team that every one of our uniforms is custom exactly how we want it.
Yeah.
So that if we like, for instance, for me, I wanted to open it up under here just to help with my arm action and stuff, and she goes in there on these jerseys and does that, for my game jerseys and my practice jerseys so that they match, so that there's no discrepancy between practice and game.
Wow.
And so like if I give that away, if I ask for a jersey swap, like if I wanted to swap with you, I would be like, hey, on Monday or Tuesday, I'd be like, hey, I want a jersey swap this week. They'll just pull one off the rack that she hasn't worked on,
Yeah.
and then I'll give that away, versus giving the one off my back that she's custom made to fit exact. Now she's got to make another jersey, put my name on it, do the same customizations and all that, and that's just kind of,
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
I think it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you do them at the end of the year too. Like,
Yeah, because we get, I mean, for me, we're lucky. We get 6 jerseys, so like I can just tell my friends like, hey, I don't have to pay for those. So I'm like, hey, at the end of the
Sweet.
year, I'll get these ones. If you want one, I give one to my dad in high school and all that stuff.
yeah.
So.
Who else is different there? Let's say, I mean, Lamar. You got to talk about Lamar. I mean,
Lamar is.
he's just different, man. The
Yeah.
things he does with his feet,
He's,
with his mind.
Yeah, he's kind of
like,
an anomaly to me. I don't understand how he's so fast and can do some of the stuff that he can do. Like, he plays like he can run as well as any of our wide receivers, and
Better.
Yeah, I mean, as good as any in the league.
Maybe
probably.
other than like Zay.
Yeah, I would say Zay's.
He's
I've never
sneaking.
seen anybody stop on a dime like Zay Flowers, but
Yeah.
Lamar can just. He's just such a special athlete that I really don't think you see a lot of guys like that. And he's got a great arm. He's becoming a really good regular quarterback, like a pocket passer, I guess you would say. But he can also bust a move when he needs to, and when he does, I mean, it's like the running back has the ball, So he's a very special talent, and I think big things are coming. He's played really, really well this year, and outside of the last couple of years, he's been kind of banged up a little bit since I've been on the team, but. I mean, in 2019, he was MVP for a reason. It didn't go away. He just stopped. He just missed out. He missed 5 games in 21 and 6 games last year, and it's just unfortunate. And I think this year he can get all 17 in. I mean, he's a stud. He's one of the best. He's one of the highest paid guys in the league for a reason, and I think he can take us to the promised land. And it's good. It's great being around that.
No doubt, right? The greatness of it and the difference of it and the possibility at any moment in time, like. He can change a game, change a season,
Yeah.
win your game, win
We're
your
never
Super Bowl.
we're never out of it. As
No.
long as if we got 8 back there, we can score in a
Another
second.
guy that's different. You were talking in the comparison to Ray Lewis, Roquan Smith. Talk about him.
Yeah, Roquan is, Roquan and I, we've been teammates for a long time now, played college ball together, came into Georgia together, kind of learned the ropes in Athens, and now being back on the team together. I think Roquan is a once in a generation type player on defense. I look at like when he came, I'll never forget this. We were playing Tampa Bay last year. This is the week before we traded for Roquan. Thursday night in Tampa. And I'm sitting there pregame, and they, sometimes they'll show like the stat leaders on the board. And Roquan had 88 tackles in 6 games. No, wait, it was 7 games because we played Tampa week 8. So it was 7 games. I think I don't know the exact numbers, but I think our leading tackler had like 50. And we're just like, I'm sitting up there, and I heard PQ was like, basically said like, damn, he's got 88 tackles? Like.
Who's PQ?
Patrick Queen.
Yeah.
He's a stud for us now, and I think adding a guy like Roquan has just upped Patrick's game. But when you bring in a guy like Roquan, I mean, he made like 17 tackles in his first game with the Ravens against the Saints, and he only been on the team since Tuesday. We played him on Monday night, It was either Monday or Sunday, but to me, he's like the perfect fit for Baltimore. He's got that. He's as close to Ray Lewis as anybody will ever be. I think Ray's. I didn't have the privilege of playing with Ray Lewis, but being in Baltimore, I've met him, I've talked to him, he's spoken to the team. He's kind of like the standard for like play like a Raven. He's kind of the guy, and I think Roquan fits that bill as good as anybody can. And he's his own player. I think Roquan's a lot faster. I don't know specifics. Like I said, I wasn't big.
He definitely
enough
moves better than Ray. Like,
I think he does
not,
too.
That's not controversial.
Yeah, I think Roquan. I mean,
Ray's a
Roquan's
big boy.
speed is just.
Plus, Ray was like a low-level recruit too.
Yeah.
Roquan was like from day one.
Yeah, Roquan.
He was getting recruited to play wide out at Bama.
Yeah, he was committed to UCLA at first, and then he almost went to Alabama as a wide receiver.
What? That's chaos. Let's see what else on Baltimore before we wrap things up. I think before we wrap things up, I want to go back to the XFL. You need to tell for our audience this amazing story about having no uprights, because that's a good story.
This is it's one that you don't hear a lot in football. Mr. McMahon bought the Cincinnati Reds. You play there. The Cincinnati Reds' old baseball facility, converted it to the XFL, became our locker room football practice facility.
Great place.
Great place. Great facility.
Great grass.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, it doesn't get much better in Florida. The only downside there was two downsides. And when you coming from a special teams and being a specialist, yardages have to be precise, because we deal in these minute little inches can decide whether it's a good kick or a bad kick, or a good snap and a bad snap. So the two faults of that were we practiced on baseball fields. So when the fields got painted, which they were painted by the county, because we didn't have equipment guys or anything like that, or we didn't have grounds crew. So the county would paint the fields. And if you've ever been on a baseball field in the outfield, the fence is kind of bowed. It's not straight, obviously, because it's deeper in center field. And so they had a tendency to paint the field with that same bow. So what that would do would be it would make the yardages different, because the field would kind of be longer on this side, and so the lines were kind of going at an angle. So when it got closer to the dirt, the 5 yards was really 4 yards, and then you got away from the dirt, and 5 yards was 7 yards, and so that made a difference for the snapping and stuff like that. But my favorite part was we had no uprights because we were practicing on a baseball field, and we go through the training camp or whatever in January, and we play our first game, and Andrew Frank's our kicker, and he hadn't played. He played with the Dolphins in 2016, 2017, but he hadn't played in several years. And so I remember we missed that. We had a 50-something yarder, our first kick, and we missed it. And then we ended up making another one later on in that game. And our special teams coordinator, Frank Gantz Jr., was he basically what the hell was that? How'd you miss that field goal? And it was mind you, it was 20-mile-an-hour winds in 35-degree weather at MetLife Stadium. So it was brutal conditions. And he's man, we don't have any uprights at practice. I don't know if I'm making, I don't know how good these kicks are. And so he's well, y'all better figure that out, fix it. So we go back to Tampa. I guess we played on Saturday or Sunday. And go back to Tampa on our off day. We drive over to Lowe's down the road from the practice facility, and we buy these 20-foot tall PVC pipes. And we bring them into practice the next day, and we had equipment guys, because in NFL and XFL, similar rules with the field. The uprights are on the hash marks, so it's easy. You can just literally post it in the ground on the hash mark. So that's what we had. We had 2 equipment guys that held 20-foot tall PVCs while we kicked during field goal period. And Andrew actually went on and kicked really well after that. I think we missed one more field goal after that, but it definitely made a huge difference for him, just confidence-wise, because he didn't have any feedback if he was doing good or not. Because you can't tell if you're kicking a 50-yard field goal, it's really difficult to see if that would have hit the upright, would it have gone in, or whatever. And so I think getting the uprights was a game changer for us. And I mean, like I said, they did the best they could with this under the circumstances, and we capitalized. But we definitely did not have uprights for a while.
XFL, we had unique. The balls were shaped different.
They were a different texture too. The NFL has a patent on the leather technology
Really?
or something, and so we had different leather on our balls.
It was weird. It was
Yeah.
a weird situation.
It was not that pigskin like the NFL
Maybe that's
ball.
why I couldn't snap. I'll blame it on that.
100%, dude. I'm not even joking you. We had to break our own balls in.
Yeah.
And it came with like these weird like triangular shaped like rivets on the
Yep.
ball, but they were all going in different directions, so it wasn't like a consistent feel.
They were trying to make it cool.
Yeah, it was like for aesthetic. It was for the look. And meanwhile, you grab the ball and you're like, I cannot hold on to this.
Yeah.
And we would have to break our balls in. So luckily, Jake Shum, our punter, was like a professional ball breaker inner
He
guy.
was dialed in.
I know, and like without him, because he could rub those rivets out and get it close to what the texture of an NFL ball. Kind of get like a K ball is really smooth. They get rid of the rivets on the K ball, just because you don't want, aerodynamically speaking, and also grip for me, like you don't want those rivets because they're just it can affect it in a lot of different ways. And the XFL ball was bigger and they didn't break in the same way, so the shape was weird. It was like almost like a rugby ball after we broke in our balls.
Yeah, they were
Um,
fatter.
Yeah, because there were no rules on breaking in the ball, so we would spend every waking hour that we weren't practicing breaking in balls. We had them in our room because Jake and I lived together. We would just be hammering ball, like literally
We were-
beating balls with mallets.
That was nuts.
in our hotel room.
Living in the hotel room with guys like on a truck stop.
Dude, I mean, at least it was free.
It
you
was
know?
free. People
It was
complained. If
free.
you were mature,
Yeah,
you had a weight room that was great.
Yeah.
Outside in the old,
it was
in
great.
the
It
old
was like
batting
living in
cages.
California, dude.
It was good time.
Perfect weather.
In
like-
March.
yeah, January, February, March in Tampa, Florida is like,
Spring break time, we had a great
yeah,
time.
it's like
And
the
then
most
COVID
perfect
hit.
weather. Yeah, COVID kind of,
Where'd you go, Atlanta?
yeah, drove back to Atlanta.
I was
I
in
had,
Destin. It was great.
dude,
I got stuck there.
Atlanta wasn't bad. I remember we went to LA. Our last game was in
Yep.
LA, remember?
They came back and beat us.
And we go out there, and Jake and I went to dinner. My aunt and uncle live in Arizona, and they came for the game, so they took us out to dinner. And like people are like wearing masks and stuff, and like we're in Florida, okay? Everyone knows about Florida during COVID. It was didn't even exist really.
The first case was in Seattle. We
Yeah.
played in Seattle.
Yep.
We had to go
Second
silent
game,
cadence
yeah.
with like 40, 50,000 people.
Yeah. Then COVID hit. Like
There was
we
somebody
got
who
that.
was like a vendor at that game that had COVID. I
Yeah.
remember sitting down and being like, man, the AAF shut down. I wonder if this is going to shut us down. And then 3 weeks later, it
So,
did.
yeah.
What's his name was licking the microphones and all that stuff from
Yeah.
Salt Lake City.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, now it's been a hell of a run. And between us, we play 50-something games in the league. I know you're still going. I'm trying to still get back in this thing.
One day I'll come back and hopefully I can play another 10 years. But
We'll tell the real stories. We told a lot of good
yeah, I would
stories.
say when we're done, I got plenty. I have plenty.
It'll have nothing to do with drinking beer and having a good time.
No.
I can guarantee
Blessed
you.
to be where I'm at and have the opportunity to continue to play the career and get together with my old backup long snapper,
man.
my old guy, and
If you walked out to that field and said, all right, these two guys, let's look around, let's do some scouting,
everyone on that team,
you would have been like, those two, now they're not going to make it.
I probably would have been the last option for a guy that would have made it to the NFL. 'Cause
Yeah.
back then I was, we drank a lot. I was fat and like,
You were ripping dimes back there, though.
yeah, I mean, I was snapping the ball really well.
At the end of the
And
day, that's all that matters.
yeah, but most
different
people
than
don't
tight
put
end.
that. Most people don't put that together. When you got Nick Truesdale looking like freaking Greek god playing
did.
tight end, you're like,
He did.
why is this guy not playing in the NFL? And I don't know.
You got to find your niche in the league, I think, too.
Yeah.
Like,
not everybody is a
you
superstar.
got to find your niche. Exactly.
Not everybody is. You gotta know your role.
There's a need for fourth tight ends in the
100%. I mean, and dude, I make a lot of money, and I play long snapper. It's
Well,
a
yeah,
good.
you-
It's a
you-
good living.
That's
It's a
right.
tough job.
It's a tough job.
But it's like
People underestimate. Everyone you want to be a punter. You want to be a punter.
no, yeah.
You don't want to be a kicker. You don't
No,
want to be a
kicker's
snapper.
a lot of pressure.
You want to be a
Kicker's
punter.
special breed, but people don't. I think ego gets players a lot, man. They just like,
He does. I think you got a lot of players in the XFL.
yeah, they're so
a lot of
used to
players in that
being the top dog, and it's like, I've been an underdog my entire professional career.
Yeah, me
I was a
too.
late round draft pick. I was a walk on. I got cut multiple times. Like, it was nothing for me. And I luckily I found a niche, something I'm really good at, and there's a chance I can play for 10 years.
Yeah.
So
And
that's the goal. Play till I'm 40. I'm 30 now, so this year doesn't count. But
So we got 10 years. You got to wait for the real story.
yeah, the real stories will. Hopefully, I can get there. I think I can. I played really well in my first 2 years, and I think I have a lot of years left in my body.
All pro long snapper Nick Moore. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.